I can't believe this is happening.
It's going to be all right, dear.
I'm Bailey Ellis, 32, running a marketing firm out of St. Augustine that just hit 7 figures. Nice house with ocean view balconies, full staff of 12, the works custom espresso machine in the break room, quarterly team retreats to the Keys. But rewind 15 years and picture this. I'm 17, dragging a single suitcase out of a Jacksonville garage while my stepmom Frances plants herself in the doorway, arms crossed like iron bars, voice slicing the humid night air. Get out of my house now. My dad Wayne stands 2 feet behind her eyes, glued to the cracked concrete mouth shut tighter than the rusted padlock on the side gate. Not one word. I beg, I cry, I reach for his oil-stained sleeve. He flinches but says nothing, just shifts his weight from one boot to the other. Frances shoves a bus ticket into my trembling hand, one-way 90 kilometers south departure, stamped in red ink. Your aunt's waiting. Don't come back. Door slams, engine roars. I'm on that midnight Greyhound before the echo fades, staring out the fogged window as Jacksonville's sodium lights shrink behind me, the suitcase digging into my shins with every pothole. 15 years later, they showed up at my office door demanding 150 grand. Blood doesn't lie, you owe your parents. What I did next made them lose their minds. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't believe how this family drama ends. Let's rewind to when I was 12, living in a split-level ranch on the west side of Jacksonville. Mom had been gone 6 months, brain aneurysm, sudden and merciless. The house felt too quiet without her laugh bouncing off the yellowed kitchen walls, without her humming Motown while flipping pancakes on Sunday mornings. Dad and I managed frozen dinners nuked in the same microwave that still had her fingerprint smudges, laundry piled like snowdrifts in the hallway, but we had each other. He worked double shifts at the auto shop on Cassatt Avenue, came home smelling like motor oil and exhaustion grease, embedded so deep under his nails it looked tattooed. Still, he'd kick off his boots, ruffle my hair and ask about my day, with that soft smile that made the silence bearable. We were a team, him and me, against the quiet. Then he met Frances Lane at a barbecue joint near Atlantic Beach, the one with the neon pig sign flickering over cracked parking lot asphalt. She was a waitress with sharp hazel eyes and a smile that never quite reached them, like she was calculating the tip before the food arrived. Dad brought her home one Sunday for lunch after church. She wore a sunflower sundress, brought store-bought potato salad in a plastic tub, and called me sweetie right away, the word landing awkward on my ears. I didn't know what to make of it, but Dad looked lighter than he had in months, shoulders less hunched, laugh lines reappearing. 2 months later, they got married at the Duval County Courthouse in a 15-minute ceremony, justice of the peace, 2 courthouse clerks as witnesses, no reception. Frances moved in with 3 suitcases, a cardboard box of romance paperbacks, and a gray tabby cat named Whiskers, who immediately claimed Mom's old rocking chair. At first she tried, or at least performed trying. She reorganized the pantry with color-coded labels in her perfect Catholic school cursive, cooked meatloaf every Wednesday because routine builds character, and hung new curtains that smelled like plastic. I called her Frances because Mom felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin, and she never asked for more. Dad said, give it time, that blending families was like breaking in new boots. Uncomfortable at first, but worth the blisters. I did. I set the table without being asked, folded her laundry into neat squares, even fed Whiskers when she worked late shifts at the diner. Anything to keep the peace, to keep Dad's new lightness from dimming. But peace didn't last. Frances started counting pennies like a dragon hoarding gold. She'd stand at the fridge with the door open, cold air spilling out, sighing loud enough for me to hear from the living room where I pretended to do homework. Milk's almost $2 a gallon now, she'd announce, like I was the one guzzling it by the carton. Dad would nod, rub the back of his neck until the skin turned pink, and change the subject to baseball scores. She took over the checkbook, questioned every receipt with a red pen. When I needed new sneakers for school because the old ones had holes in both soles, she held the box up like evidence in court. These cost how much you'll make do with duct tape. Dad stayed quiet, eyes on the TV guide. She rearranged the furniture too, turning our lived-in chaos into a showroom. My mom's old oak rocking chair, the one where she used to read me Harry Potter until I fell asleep, got pushed to the garage under a tarp. "It's taking up space," Frances said, dusting her hands. I dragged it back inside one night while she was at bingo, wedged it beside my bed. Next morning, it was gone again. Dad helped her load it into her trunk for goodwill muscles, straining under the weight, refusing to meet my eyes, even when I whispered please. I kept trying. I babysat neighbors' kids on weekends, sticky toddlers who left graham cracker fingerprints on my jeans, brought home $20 in crumpled fives, handed it to Frances like an offering at church. She tucked it into her purse without a thank you, just a tight smile. Every little bit helps the household. I started doing her grocery lists, clipping coupons from the Sunday paper with safety scissors, circling 2-for-1 deals on canned beans. She'd inspect them under the kitchen light, cross off anything frivolous like Cocoa Puffs or name-brand cereal. Dad ate whatever she put in front of him, plain oatmeal dry toast, and thanked her like it was gourmet. By the time I turned 13, the house rules had her name on them in black Sharpie. Curfew at 8 on school nights. No phone after 9 chores posted on the fridge, like a diner menu, scrub toilets, mop linoleum, iron Dad's work shirts until the creases could cut glass. Frances watched from the couch, legs tucked under her flipping channels, sipping sweet tea through a straw. If I missed a spot, she'd point it out with a manicured nail-painted drugstore coral. "Details matter, Bailey. Sloppy work, sloppy life." Dad started working later, claiming overtime paid time and a half. He'd come home after I was in bed, kiss Frances on the cheek, ask what was for dinner, even when the answer was leftovers. My report card with straight A's sat on the counter. He glanced, smiled weakly like it hurt, then turned to her for approval. She'd say, "Good, but college isn't cheap, and we're not made of money." I learned to celebrate alone, taping the report card inside my closet door where no one could diminish it. One Saturday, I found Frances in my room, drawers yanked open, clothes in piles on the carpet like evidence. "Spring cleaning," she announced, holding up my favorite hoodie. Mom's old one, faded navy with a tiny hole at the cuff, but soft as forgiveness. "This is ratty. Trash." I grabbed it back, heart hammering. She raised an eyebrow. "Possessions don't define you, Bailey. Let go." That night, I hid it under my mattress, the fabric still smelling faintly of Mom's vanilla lotion. The breaking point came on a random Tuesday in April. I'd aced a history test on the civil rights movement, came home buzzing to tell Dad, paper clutched like a golden ticket. He was in the recliner, Frances perched on the armrest like a gargoyle, showing him paint swatches for the spare room that used to be Mom's sewing nook. "We could turn it into an office for your invoices," she said, tapping a shade called Seafoam Mist. Dad nodded. I waited for my turn, shifting from foot to foot. Frances looked over, eyes narrowing. "Bailey, your dad and I are talking budgets. 1 income, 1 child, that's the plan now. Blood or not, grown girls need to stand on their own 2 feet. Dad opened, his mouth closed. It stared at the TV where a muted infomercial sold miracle knives. The silence stretched until the air felt thick as humidity before a storm. I stood there, test paper crumpling in my fist, the 98 in red ink bleeding. Frances smiled like she'd won a prize at the county fair. "Self-reliance builds character, sweetie." The house turned colder from there. Thermostat set lower to save on the electric. Frances started tracking every dollar like a hawk with binoculars. She'd pull out the grocery receipt at dinner, circle items in red pen, apples, yogurt, even the off-brand mac and cheese, and slide it across the table toward me. $2 for apples. "We could skip fruit this week and your thighs would thank us." My dad would chew, slower, eyes on his plate, fork scraping ceramic. I'd nod and promise to eat less, to pack carrot sticks from the garden instead. School projects became battles. I needed poster board for a science fair volcano, $3 at the dollar store. Francis held the money between two fingers like it might bite. Blood ties don't pay for extras. Earn it yourself. That weekend, I mowed Mrs. Henderson's lawn next door for $5, came home sweaty and proud, grass stains on my sneakers. Francis took 4, said the house needed detergent, handed me back a single for your trouble. Birthdays vanished. Mine hit in April. No cake, no card, no off-key singing. Dad forgot until Francis mentioned it was just another day on the calendar. I baked brownies from a mix with Dana's old recipe card shared with neighbors who said happy birthday, like it mattered. Francis ate too, complained about the calories, then asked if I'd calculated the cost of cocoa powder. Dad smiled apologetically, but said nothing, just cleared his plate. Report cards lost meaning. Straight A's again. I left it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like Florida. Francis glanced over while pouring coffee. Good grades don't put food on the table. Wayne's overtime barely covers rent and my blood pressure meds. Dad folded the paper, tucked it in his pocket like contraband, and went to watch the game on a TV with rabbit ears. I picked up shifts at a fast food joint off Atlantic Boulevard, the one with the busted neon open sign that only lit the O and the N. Weekends from 4 to close, flipping burgers in a polyester uniform that smelled like grease and regret. First paycheck, $87 after taxes, crisp bills, I counted 3 times. I handed it to Francis in the kitchen under the flickering fluorescent light. She counted it twice, slow and deliberate. This helps with the electric bill. Keep it up, kiddo. Dad ruffled my hair once, muttered, proud of you, so low I almost missed it, then followed her to the living room, where the laugh track of some sitcom filled the silence. The comments sharpened like kitchen knives. Over breakfast, Wayne's paycheck stretches thin with 3 mouths to feed. At the mall, that shirt's cute, but blood doesn't buy fashion. Save it for college applications. I stopped asking. Save tips in a Folgers coffee can under my bed labeled college in black Sharpie, the metal lid dented from nervous tapping. Francis audited my closet like a tax collector. Too many clothes for one girl. She bagged half for donation, including jeans I'd outgrown, but kept for patches, the ones Mom had hemmed with tiny blue stitches. Dad carried the bags to her car without protest, shoulders rounded like he carried more than polyester. Utility bills arrived in my name for practice. I paid the water bill with burger money, $23.42. Francis taped the receipt to the fridge with a magnet that said, "Bless this mess, see responsibility in action." Dad's silence grew heavier, a fog that settled over the house. He'd come home, collapse in his chair, let Francis fill the air with complaints about rising prices, nosy neighbors, my habits like leaving dishes in the sink for 10 minutes. If I tried talking to him alone in the garage while he changed spark plugs, she'd appear in the doorway holding a laundry basket. Family discussions happened together, Bailey. One evening, I worked a double shift, legs aching like I'd run a marathon, uniform stained with ketchup and fryer oil. Came home to Francis at the kitchen table with a calculator and a yellow legal pad. Sit. She pushed a spreadsheet forward, columns for rent, groceries, utilities, my share circled in red. Even blood costs money. Wayne can't carry it all forever. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, staring at the floor like it might open and swallow him. I started eating at work, free employee meal of a burger and fries. Packed lunches in brown bags to save grocery money, peanut butter sandwiches cut diagonally like Mom used to. Francis noticed, nodded approval. Smart. Less strain on the pantry, more money for the mortgage. The final straw hit during summer break before senior year. I'd saved $200 from tips, planned a community college brochure, the envelope hidden in my sock drawer. Francis found it while organizing. This could cover car insurance for a month, she said, pocketed it before I could protest. Dad watched from the hallway, said zero, just rubbed the back of his neck until the skin turned raw. That night, she cornered me in the laundry room between the humming dryer and the ironing board. We're not a charity, Bailey. Wayne's blood or not, We can't keep funding your future. We simply can't afford it anymore. And frankly, it's time you learned the real world doesn't hand out free rides. One Friday evening after my shift, I pushed through the front door smelling like fryer oil and teenage exhaustion. Frances waited in the garage, arms folded tight across her chest like a bouncer. Dad lingered behind her, hands buried in the pockets of his work jeans. The overhead fluorescent light buzzed and flickered, casting harsh shadows on the oil-stained floor. She pointed at a duffel bag by the workbench, my old one from summer camp, zipper half busted. Pack what fits. You're leaving tonight. I froze in the doorway, the smell of motor oil mixing with my fryer grease. What? Why now? I just gave you last week's tips. She stepped closer, her perfume sharp. Get out of my house. We've discussed this for months. Her voice echoed off the concrete walls, cold and final. Dad shifted his weight but kept his gaze on the oil-stained floor boots, scuffing like he wanted to disappear into the cracks. Tears came fast, hot, and uncontrollable. I dropped my apron, reached for Dad's arm. Please talk to her. I'll work more shifts, cover everything I'm saving for college, not parties. He pulled away gently, shook his head, once the motion so small I almost missed it. No words, no fight, nothing. Frances grabbed a suitcase from the shelf, my old one from summer camp, the one with the broken wheel, and thrust it at me. Closed toothbrush, that's it. The rest stays here. It's house property now. I stumbled to my room, stuffed jeans tees, the hidden hoodie that still smelled like Mom. She followed, hovering in the doorway, tapping her foot. Faster. Bus leaves in 40. Back in the garage, she fished a bus ticket from her purse like a magician revealing a card. One way to St. Augustine, departure in 40 minutes, the paper already creased from her grip. Your Aunt Dana Moss is expecting you. Don't miss it, or you'll be sleeping on the street. Dad took the suitcase, loaded it into her trunk without looking up, the muscles in his jaw twitching. I pleaded again, voice cracking. Dad, say something. This is my home. Mom's pictures are still on the walls. He opened the car door for me, eyes glassy with unshed tears or regret, I couldn't tell. Frances slid into the driver's seat, engine already running. Move, Bailey. Clock's ticking. The ride to the station took 10 minutes of silence, thicker than North Florida humidity. Witchy's streetlights blurred through my window into streaks of orange. At the Greyhound terminal, Frances parked, curbside hazards blinking. Out. Now. Dad handed me the duffel, slipped a 20 into my palm, his only move all night, the bill damp with his sweat. Frances revved the engine impatiently. I boarded with minutes to spare, climbing the steps with legs that felt like jelly. The bus smelled like vinyl stale coffee and the ghost of 1,000 journeys. I took a seat near the back, ticket crumpled in my fist like a lifeline. 90 kilometers south, 1.5 hours. The driver announced departure in a bored monotone. Jacksonville's skyline faded as we hit I-95, the skyline I'd watched from the beach 1,000 times, now shrinking to nothing. Halfway, rain started, fat drops splattering the window. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass, watching wipers swipe in hypnotic rhythm. Memories flashed, Mom's laugh in that garage while Dad taught me to change a tire, her hands over mine on the lug wrench. Birthday parties with store-bought sheet cake and balloons tied to the mailbox. Gone. Frances's words looped in my head. My house, my rules, blood doesn't pay. The bus lurched over potholes, each jolt a reminder. I counted mile markers like rosary beads, the numbers climbing: 22, 23, 24. St. Augustine exit appeared around midnight, the sign glowing under streetlights. The station was dim, a single clerk behind bulletproof glass chewing gum like it was a chore. I hauled the bags off, legs numb from sitting, the duffel strap cutting into my shoulder. Headlights swept the empty lot. A familiar sedan pulled up, Dana Moss, my mom's younger sister, stepping out in flannel pajamas and a yellow raincoat, curls escaping her ponytail. She spotted me, rushed over, wrapped me in a hug that smelled like lavender, soap, and safety. You're here. You're safe now, sweetheart. She took the duffel without asking. guided me to the car like I was made of glass. No questions yet, just the steady pressure of her hand on my back. As we drove the last miles to her house through streets slick with rain, I glanced back through the rear window. Jacksonville's glow vanished behind a curtain of palms and Spanish moss. I whispered to the darkness, "I'm never going back," the words tasting like both promise and threat. Dana led me to her small bungalow on a quiet street near the historic district, the porch light a warm beacon. She cleared the spare room that night, pushing aside boxes of nursing textbooks and holiday decorations, made up the bed with fresh sheets that smelled like line-dried sunshine. "Stay as long as you need," she said. No pressure, no ledger. I enrolled in the local high school the next week, paperwork handled at the district office, uniform bought with her credit card at the uniform shop downtown. She covered rent and groceries without keeping score, without circling items in red pen. Classes started tough. New faces, different curriculum, the weight of whispers following the new kid with the sad eyes. I sat alone at lunch under the oak tree until Leah Morales slid onto the bench opposite me, tray balanced expertly. "New kid, I'm Leah. Math's my thing, need help with algebra." We swapped numbers on napkins. Study sessions at the public library became routine, fluorescent lights humming over textbooks. She explained equations like puzzles, quizzed me on history dates with flashcards she laminated herself. My grades climbed fast from B's to A's in a single semester. Dana worked as a nurse, odd shifts at Flagler Hospital, some nights 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I took over, cooking simple meals, spaghetti with jar sauce, taco salads with ground turkey, to contribute without being asked. She left $20 bills on the counter next to the coffee pot for gas or snacks. "For your efforts," she'd say with a wink, never making it feel like payment. I saved everyone in a new coffee can labeled "Future" in Dana's neat handwriting. Part-time jobs filled the gaps. Weekends at a beachside cafe pouring lattes for tourists in flip-flops, weekdays stocking shelves at a tourist shop, selling alligator heads and keychains. Tips added up in a mason jar on my dresser. Dana drove me to interviews, waited in the car with the engine running and NPR low. Leah tagged along, sometimes practicing Spanish with the managers, charming them into better shifts. Senior year brought scholarship applications, stacks of forms on Dana's kitchen table. Leah proofread essays until midnight. Dana typed them on her ancient Dell computer that sounded like a jet engine. Full ride to the State University marketing major, the acceptance letter, thick ivory paper. Dana framed it on the wall next to her nursing degree, both of us beaming in the photo she snapped with her flip phone. College meant dorms, but I commuted to save money, 45 minutes each way in Dana's hand-me-down Corolla. Early classes, late shifts at a campus bookstore, shelving textbooks thicker than bricks. Leah transferred to the same school sophomore year, shared rides in her beat-up Civic with the busted muffler blasting playlists of early 2000s pop. Group projects turned into business ideas, mock campaigns for local coffee shops, Instagram strategies for student organizations. Internship junior year at a small agency in Gainesville sealed it. I designed social media ads that boosted client sales, 20% in one-quarter numbers I presented in a PowerPoint that made the owner tear up. Boss offered part-time pay and a corner desk. Summers, I freelanced, built a portfolio on a second-hand MacBook, late nights fueled by Red Bull and ambition. Leah handled graphics. We split fees 50-50, celebrating with cheap tacos and high fives. Graduation day. Dana sat front row in a sundress and sun hat, clapping loudest when my name echoed across the arena. Leah snapped photos with her new DSLR, tears in her eyes. I walked the stage, debt-free, diploma in hand, the tassel swinging like freedom. Post-grad, I rented a tiny office above a coffee shop on Hippolyta Street, the kind with exposed brick and a leaky ceiling. Started with one client, a bed and breakfast needing online bookings to compete with Airbnb. Word spread through St. Augustine's tight-knit business scene. Hired my first employee 6 months in, Maria, a whiz at SEO. Leah joined full-time after her design degree, her cubicle exploding with color swatches. We rebranded restaurants with oceanfront patios, launched e-commerce sites for artisan jewelers. Revenue doubled yearly, then tripled. By 25, we moved to a proper suite downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony overlooking the bay. 10 staff steady contracts a ping-pong table in the break room for stress relief. Dana stopped by grand openings, brought homemade oatmeal raisin cookies in Tupperware. Proud doesn't cover it, she told reporters from the St. Augustine Record, her arm around my shoulders. Then the letter came. Plain white envelope, Jacksonville postmark that made my stomach drop. Dad's handwriting on the front shaky but familiar. Inside apologies scrawled in blue ink, updates on the house new roof. Same creaky floors, Francis's health complaints, migraines, female troubles. Your family misses you. Come visit. We can put the past behind us. No mention of the night he stayed silent. No acknowledgement of the bus ticket or the duffel. I read it twice in the office break room, the espresso machine hissing in the background. Leah watched from the doorway, arms crossed. The paper tore clean in my hands, 4 neat pieces that hit the trash with a soft thud. Some doors stay closed, I said, and she nodded like she'd known all along. 15 years later, my St. Augustine office hummed with midday calls, the bay sparkling beyond the glass. The receptionist buzzed my line voice, hushed. 2 people in the lobby, no appointment. They say it's family, insist it's urgent. I pulled up the security camera feed on my second monitor. Francis stood rigid in a floral blouse 2 sizes too tight, clutching a large purse like a shield against the modern world. Dad lingered beside her in his old Red Wing work boots, staring at the marble floor like it might swallow him whole. My pulse quickened, a mix of dread and curiosity. Send them up, I said, minimizing windows, straightening my blazer. They stepped off the elevator into the open-plan space, the scent of Francis's White Diamonds perfume, cutting through the office's usual citrus diffuser. Employees glanced over cubicles, sensing tension thicker than August humidity. Francis surveyed the glass walls, modern art prints, Nespresso station with pods in color-coded jars. Fancy, she muttered, smoothing her skirt with manicured hands. Dad trailed her to my private suite, hands buried in pockets, eyes darting to the framed awards on the wall. I closed the frosted glass door behind them, stayed standing behind my oak desk. 90 kilometers is a long drive for a surprise visit. What's this about? My voice stayed level, professional, the tone I used with difficult clients. Francis claimed the guest chair without asking, crossing her ankles like she owned the place. Dad remained near the window, gazing at the intracoastal waterway where sailboats bobbed. She unzipped her purse with a dramatic flourish, extracted a thick manila folder bulging with printouts. We've been reading about you. Local paper, online profiles that Chamber of Commerce spread. Marketing empire, million-dollar contracts. Staff retreats to the Keys. Wayne's daughter did well. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Dad shifted, cleared his throat. Real proud, Bailey. Always knew you had it in you. She opened the folder, printouts of my LinkedIn profile, company valuation estimates from a business journal, a glossy photo from a chamber gala where I wore emerald silk. Blood built this foundation. You carry Wayne's genes, his work ethic, his stubborn streak. Dad nodded along, eyes on the carpet, the same carpet he used to vacuum on Sundays. I crossed my arms, leaning against the desk. Get to the point. Francis. She produced a single sheet, slid it across the oak like a poker bet. $150,000 written in bold Comic Sans, her idea of official. Condo down payment in Jacksonville. Retirements closing in faster than we planned. Medical bills piling higher than the Bridge of Lions. Family supports family, always has. Dad cleared his throat again, softer. We're not asking charity. A loan, maybe with interest if you want. You can afford it now. Francis leaned in, voice dropping to conspiracy. You owe your roots, Bailey. 17 years under our roof, food shelter braces that cost a fortune. Blood demands balance, and balance is due. The words hit like gravel in a blender. Oh, you handed me a bus ticket at 17 and slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. She dismissed it with a flick of her wrist rings clinking. Childish misunderstanding, water under the bridge. You're established now, fancy office staff calling you boss. Wayne sacrificed nights at the shop so you had shoes on your feet even when money was tight. Dad added softly, almost whispering, "Things got real tight after your mom passed, kiddo. We did what we could." Francis tapped the paper impatiently, nail leaving a dent. "Sign here. Wire transfer today. Keeps harmony in the family, shows the world blood sticks together." I scanned the room, my name etched on the frosted glass door, team photos from our Cayman Islands retreat awards, from the Small Business Association glinting under track lighting. "Harmony, you audited my lunch money, sold Mom's rocking chair, then declared me a burden the second I turned profitable." She raised her voice, the same tone she used in the garage 15 years ago. "And see the result. Independence you brag about in every interview. Time to repay the man whose DNA flows in your veins, who taught you to change a tire before you could spell entrepreneur." Dad stepped forward half a pace, hands out. "We drove all this way, Bailey. Just talk numbers, hear us out." Francis launched into a list like a telemarketer. Dad's bad knee needing surgery, her prescriptions costing more than groceries, rising rent in Jacksonville, eating their Social Security. Blood doesn't abandon blood, no matter the past. I pressed the intercom button under my desk, the one installed after a pushy vendor last year. "Security to my office, please." 2 guards in navy blazers appeared within seconds, earpieces glinting. Francis's face reddened to the shade of her lipstick. "This is family business." "You can't." I pointed to the elevator, voice calm as a closing argument. "Business ends here. Leave before I file a trespass report with the St. Augustine PD, and trust me, they know my name." Dad's shoulders slumped like a deflated balloon. Francis gathered her folder, muttering about ingratitude and kids these days. The guards escorted them out, one on each arm, the elevator doors sliding shut on Francis's final glare. 3 weeks later, outside a St. Augustine restaurant with fairy lights strung over the patio. Leah and I wrapped a client lunch, shaking hands over shrimp and grits contracts signed, when a beat-up sedan screeched to a stop, blocking my Tesla. Francis burst out, the driver's side face twisted like she'd bitten a lemon, hair escaping her bun in angry wisps. Dad stayed inside, head down, hands gripping the wheel. "You heartless girl," she yelled, drawing stares from diners sipping mimosas. "Stealing from your own blood after everything we sacrificed." Leah pulled her phone, started recording discreetly from her hip. I stepped back onto the curb. "Francis, leave. Now. You're violating the no-contact order I filed last week." She advanced, grabbing my sleeve hard enough to wrinkle the silk. 150,000. Wayne's daughter turns her back on her father. "Sign the transfer or I'll scream it to the whole town." Restaurant staff emerged. The manager, a former client, dialed 911 with practiced calm. Francis ranted louder, voice cracking. "Blood owes blood. You drove us to this with your fancy lawyers and your big city attitude." Sirens approached fast, 2 St. Augustine PD cruisers pulling in with lights flashing. Officers exited, hands on holsters. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. Hands visible where we can see them." Francis spun, purse swinging. "This is my stepdaughter. She owes us for 17 years of the lead cop." Officer Ramirez recognized me from the office security footage I'd emailed over. "Restraining orders active, ma'am. You're under arrest for violation, harassment, and creating a public disturbance." She thrashed as they cuffed her wrists, cheap bracelets clinking against metal. "Wayne, tell them who she is." Dad slunk out, waved weakly like surrender, then retreated to the sedan engine, coughing but not starting. Leah's video captured every second, clear audio, 4K resolution, time-stamped. "Mr. Donovan, my lawyer with the corner office downtown, met me at the station that evening, tie loosened. Solid case. Misdemeanor violation plus prior harassment history from the office visit. We'll push for maximum. Court date arrived swiftly in the historic courthouse with the marble steps. Francis pleaded no contest to avoid trial. Judge imposed a $1,000 fine, 1-year probation, stricter no-contact terms, including a 500-foot radius from my home office and any public events I attend. Another breach meant 30 days in county jail, no parole. Dad vanished from sight, no show in the gallery. Fallout spread like palmetto bugs after rain. Local paper ran a brief on page 3, woman arrested for stalking successful St. Augustine entrepreneur. Francis's bingo circle whispered behind bingo cards. Dad's shop buddies avoided eye contact at the parts counter. She sold the Jacksonville house at a loss to cover fines and lawyer fees, relocated quietly to a 1-bedroom in Orange Park under her maiden name. I changed my number that week, ported it to a new carrier. Blocked emails, socials, even the old landline at Dana's. Updated office protocols, visitor logs at reception, panic buttons under every desk, quarterly active shooter drills that doubled as team building. Leah archived the video in our secure cloud for files labeled insurance. Silence followed sweet and absolute. Dana called once from her porch swing. You did right, honey. Blood's thick, but chosen families stronger. No word from the Jacksonville ties. No more envelopes, no surprise visits. Blood doesn't buy trust. Boundaries do, steel reinforced, court-ordered, non-negotiable. If family discards you once like yesterday's newspaper, they'll circle back for scraps when you're thriving. Protect your peace with legal orders. New starts, true allies like ants who show up at midnight and friends who record the truth. Thanks for sticking through this saga. Share your thoughts below. What would you do if parents pulled this after 15 years? Drop a like if boundaries resonate. Comment your city and subscribe for more real talk triumphs over toxic ties. See you in the next one.